Hello everyone, this is GameFrost, and in today's video, I'll be upgrading this $45 HP PC into a budget $260 gaming PC. Let's check it out. The HP Prodesk 400G1 SFF is a small but long office PC that was released back in Q4 2013. Despite its age, it had a 4th generation Intel chip inside, which is still capable of applications in gaming today. The PC was listed for $45 on eBay and had an i5 4590, a 4-core 4-thread processor, and 8GB of DDR3 at 1600 MHz. The PSU was rated at 240 watts, making our upgrade options tight. When I opened up the PC casing, everything inside looks very clean. Kudos to the seller for keeping the system tidy. Anyways, the CPU cooler looks very interesting. It has a few heat pipes and acts like an exhaust for the whole system. A gripe I have with this OEM PC is that there is no intake cooling at all, but that's expected for an OEM PC. It also has a DVD drive, so that it's a nice bonus if you want to turn this into a medium system instead. Cable management is also pretty good. The only drawback when buying this system was that it had no storage device, so I had to buy an SSD for boot and a hard drive for games. Before I upgraded the system completely, I had to test if the PC posts. The BIOS looks very basic coming from American Megatrends. After that, I bought the Silicon Power 855 256GB SSD so that I can install Windows 10 since the PC was too old enough to run Windows 11. Installation was quick and easy, so it was time to install benchmark software for the i5 4590. Here are the benchmark figures. For the upgrade, specs shown here, I bought an i7 4790, 16GB of RAM from G-Skill, we'll talk about that later, AMD Pro WX 4100, a low profile bracket to fit the GPU, a mini display port to VGA adapter, and 256GB SSD and a 2TB WD Blue drive. I also included a USB Wi-Fi dongle that I found on my shelf, so in total I've spent $260 in shipping fees and taxes included. Installation was quick and easy. I replaced the CPU just fine and aligned it properly to the socket, then added some Arctic MX4 thermal paste on the i7 4790. Then I installed the low profile bracket on the WX 4100 4GB to make it fit on the small form factor build. The SSD was easy, but I needed black tape to keep the hard drive in place. There is one screw on it at least. Now for the bad news. The first problem was that one of the G-Skill RAM modules was faulty since the PC would beep and not post. The second issue was that due to my little knowledge in tech, this OEM PC doesn't have a custom BIOS to enable XMP, so I was stuck with the JEDEC profile at 1333 MHz instead of 1600 MHz. Yikes. But I still needed more memory as 8GB wasn't enough, so I used the working G-Skill stick to add on the memory slot. With the upgrades ready to go, I decided to run some benchmarks to compare. As for gaming, it was hard to record as the WX 4100 would bug out when using the VGA XR1 Lite capture card. Setting the refresh rate to 60 Hz interlace solved the problem, but at the cost of smooth recording, if there is any. Aside from the issues, I managed to record some games and taking screenshots. Let's have a look. So for the first game we have right now is Cyberpunk 2077, and as you can see here, in first impressions, it doesn't look that good, but I'm quite surprised that this GPU can actually run a modern AAA game like this one. So we're running this at 1080p low with FSR Ultra Performance. So of course the game does look a little bit fuzzy, and you might experience a few stutters here and there, but you know, we're playing this on a hard drive and of course a 4-core 8-thread system from way back in the day. But of course the 22nm CPU is still getting the job done, and I kind of expected a little bit more from the WX 4100, despite because it's a newer GCN architecture. I think it's GCN 4, which is similar to basically an RX 460/560, even though the memory clock speed is a lot lower. So if you manage to overclock this GPU, you can actually reach RX 460 levels of performance. Other than that, it could have been better, but you know, it is what it is. The next game we have right now is Fortnite, and it's not being run in performance mode whatsoever. It's actually being run in DX11. So we're running this at 1080p with epic textures and epic view distance. Everything else has been set to low, but as you could see, I think it's we also enabled TAA. Yeah, TAA is also enabled. But if you could look at the FPS figures over here, it's actually pretty good, 55 FPS average. And of course the 1% 0.1% low will remain low because of course, you know, stuttering, and plus this is the first match, so if you play a little bit more matches, I think it would just be consistent performance. But it is what it is with Fortnite. Even when you're running this on the best hardware, it would still stutter at some point. Other than that, the 4790 is actually still decent, as you can see here, so it's not bottlenecking the GPU whatsoever. I think this is a very good combo. So yeah, pretty good gameplay. Well, this one right here is probably the most disappointing. We're playing Halo Infinite at 1080p, the lowest settings, and of course we're playing in a bot match. The enemy has 4 bots and my team has 3 bots, which basically makes 8 people playing this. But as you can see, the FPS figures are not looking so good. I honestly expected just a little bit more to playable. Now of course you could tone this down to like the lowest resolution. I think there is a 720p option, but in the FPS figures we're looking around 27 FPS on average, and the max is 30 FPS. The 1% low and 0.1% low are quite close to each other, so yes, there is going to be some stutters, but I think that's just probably due to the GPU, not the CPU. There is a little bit of input lag because the GPU is being maxed out most of the time, but that's basically a good thing, as the CPU is not the primary suspect of bottlenecking, so that's pretty good. Right now we're playing NFS 2015 at 1080p Ultra with TAA, so basically this game is practically maxed out, and as you can see, the FPS figures are way above playable. We have around 39 FPS on average, and the 1%, 0.1% lows are pretty, they're alright. And yeah, this happened. So the game was still loading, and of course, you know, we had this game on a 7200 RPM hard drive. This is the first time I've seen this bug from Need for Speed 2015. But aside from that, the game is playable, I guess. On to the next game. Last but not least, we're playing Rocket League at 1080p high with no anti-aliasing, and so far it still looks pretty good without anti-aliasing, as this is just basically a competitive game, and playing with high frame rates definitely helps a lot. So you can see the averages right now, we're receiving like 90, 89 FPS on average, and not only that, but the 1% lows and 0.1% lows are actually pretty good as well. The input lag is not really noticeable, so that's a good thing, and the GPU is still being maxed out. The CPU is also in a good spot, around 20 to 30% usage. Still pretty good overall. But yeah, so far these games ran pretty well, except for probably like Halo Infinite. I kind of expected more from that game. but Rocket League played. I feel like if you want to use this machine for competitive games, it would work just fine. You could play this at 1080p, and for $260, I really think it's a very good bargain. Overall, this system is okay if you want to play light games. AAA games are a hit or miss as you have to turn down the settings and resolution. Despite the heat, it was also expected because the CPU cooler was the only thing keeping the system ventilated. The i7-4790 is really good even though it's a 4-core 8-thread chip, having the same TDP as the i5-4590 and going up to 4GHz is pretty neat. But if you want to use this for emulation or media, this gets the job done. Not only that, but you could use the GPU for some interesting CAD work as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.